Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Today, my name is Rogelio Contreras, and I direct the Social Innovation Initiative at the Walton College, and I am also a teaching assistant faculty at the Strategy, Entrepreneurship, and Venture Innovation Department. Today, we gathered to celebrate the launch of the Northwest Arkansas chapter of SameSport. And the organization is an example of the dedication, tenacity, and hard work that one person can accomplish. SameSport's founder Olga Hokhryakova is a visionary, is an entrepreneur at heart. I met Olga just a few weeks after she arrived at the University of Arkansas as a Fulbright scholar. And as soon as I met Olga, I noticed her outstanding innovative spirit. Her interest in social entrepreneurship has given me the opportunity to work with her a bit closer. First, when she was one of the participants of the Social Innovation Challenge in the fall of 2019. And then as an advocate and supporter of all things related to social innovation, collaborating with me in many of the initiatives we have with community partners in our region and other parts of the world, with students, with university colleagues. Olga's career, I don't know, I don't think I can say enough, but you know, the fact that I met Olga really also triggered a lot of ideas and a lot of initiatives that were in the back burner, and somehow she inspired me to go after them. And in a way, her career as a sport journalist, in my opinion, has helped in all these, and definitely her experience as a sport journalist set the foundation for her incursion in social innovation at the level of SameSports. After I understand, after she covered the Sochi Paralympic Games, she definitely understood the power of sports as an efficient and reliable tool to promote diversity and inclusion at the grassroots level. And with this in mind, and with very limited resources, Olga founded SameSport back in Moscow. I think the viability of any social innovation really relies on the agency it can generate among the very same individuals for which the innovation has been created. So one of the greatest achievements, in my opinion, of SameSport is precisely the organic growth that this platform has experienced, thanks to the interest and engagement of the end users themselves. Olga, ever since I met her, and I know ever since she founded SameSport back in Moscow, she has been trying to generate revenue streams for the platform. And this is perhaps the main reason for which we ended up connecting and collaborating since her arrival to the university. But generating revenue streams for any new venture is not an easy task, and let alone if the venture has a strong social mission. And balancing profit and purpose is rather difficult. But as a true social entrepreneur, Olga has decided to focus her vision on the social impact of her work, assessing the return on investment, not only in financial terms, but also in social terms. So when Olga started exploring the many different initiatives focusing on diversity and inclusion in our region, she knew that a good way to actually scale out the initiative was to open a chapter here in Northwest Arkansas. And I would say that this is something that really has transformed the way in which I started understanding the importance of of inclusion in our region, and Olga helped me see many different dimensions in this, of inclusion as an essential asset in the construction of a fair and democratic community. It takes inclusion, feeling that we belong, that we have a place and a voice in our communities, in order to be able to imagine and reimagine our future in these communities. So this is particularly important, especially if the future that stands before us is limited by the social or political attributes that we as a society have given to our physical abilities, for example. So with so many groups in our communities literally ignore or abandon to their own luck due to our preconceptions of what is quote unquote normal. SameSports is an example of what it means to open spaces and creating agency among members of our community for whom we normally have no differences, no spaces. So SameSports is much more than an organization promoting inclusion through sports. SameSports is the kind of endeavor that builds healthier, more just, and prosperous communities by virtue of what the organization is all about, which in my opinion is all about empathy, it's all about solidarity, and a way to create beauty that relies on recognizing in each other the essence of our common humanity, using sports as an excuse. So with that said, I want to thank Olga for all her efforts and all that she has taught me in these years that she has been here at the University of Arkansas. And I wish her luck with this endeavor. I know that the sky is the limit. Thank you, Olga.
Thank you so much for your words.
If I may, Olga, I'd like to say a word about the connection of your project to the University of Arkansas. Hello, everybody. My name is Lawrence Hare. I'm the chair of the Department of History at the University of Arkansas, and Rogelio and I work together on the Arkansas Global Changemakers Project, of which Olga has been a very important part. And our project is aimed at enhancing the ability of local communities to deal with global challenges by placing them into dialogue with communities around the world so that we can learn from each other. So in this sense, the SameSport initiative is exactly the type of project that we are looking to support. It was conceived and developed in Moscow, Russia, and Olga has done a tremendous job adapting it for our needs here in Arkansas in the United States. And so we hope that this is we can celebrate not only this particular initiative, but think about the ways in which it can give rise to similar initiatives and similar exchanges between countries. Olga, we'll turn it over to you and you can start your panel.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such an honor to have you here opening the conversation we have today. Being a part of Arkansas Global Changemakers has been and still and will always keep me growing and give me a lot of new things, and for my projects and for my personal future everything as well. So thanks everyone for coming. I'm so happy to see all those people from all around the world, from all the United States and Russia. I see so many friends here, so many people who believe in me. And actually preparing presentation for these 10 minutes has been the most challenging thing, despite all the competitions and pitches and everything I have been participated for these 2 years, because these people who are there, these people believed in me so long, and when I did not believe in myself. So you invested in me much more than any venture capitalist could. So, there is a lot of pressure today. So I'm sorry, a lot of pressure, but let's start with a presentation. So I wanted to start with the core thing, and the core thing is my team. And my team, my favorite partner, co-founder, friend, Anastasia Samoilova, she actually was my Russian deaf language instructor. This is how we met 1 year ago. And we just had a conversation about who is doing what and what are you doing with your life. And this is how I explained her about the project. And it appeared that she is an amateur and professional athlete in sports for deaf. And we have a lot in common, especially our belief in sports. And so I want to acknowledge the importance of having this teammate with a 10, 11 difference in time we usually had when we applied for all the accelerators we had applied together. And Anastasia, if you want to say hi to everyone.
Hi everyone from Moscow. I'm Anastasia. I'm co-founder of SameSport in Moscow. And I'm so happy that SameSport are open in Arkansas. That's really a wonderful moment, provides an opportunity of inclusive sport for everyone, accessible to people with and without disabilities. I'm pleased to welcome speakers who are working with inclusive sport. I thank the University in Arkansas for support, and of course my big thanks, my amazing founder Olga, for your energy and drive and inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you, Nastya. So together we tried 33 types of different sports, including adaptive, inclusive, non-adaptive, whatever. So we are crazy about sports, and this is why I think our main thing. And also I wanted to acknowledge our advisory board, Rahila, whom you already met now, who believed in me at the very difficult moment, and thanks from the bottom of my heart for that. It's all happening. Thanks to you also. And Mr. Register, who is not there, but he gave me a call and sent his highs. He's an alumni of University of Arkansas, and he's a Paralympic silver medalist, an amazing person who also supported me despite how busy he is. And I mean, sometimes I'm so grateful for every minute you people who actually don't have any free minute spent with me and talking about my project and helping me with ideas. So closer to the point. So we believe in sports, and we believe in power sports together with the United Nations, who recognize it as a tool for development and peace, for promotion of tolerance and respect, empowerment of different populations, of promotion of health, education, and social inclusion. And this is why we're doing that. So this is our goal. These are our 5 sustainable development goals we are focusing on, and we believe that SameSport can contribute in these 5 goals. Our mission is to promote inclusive activities and connect diverse people through this universal language. So sports is a tool, and working on that, we understand that sports can be a tool for inclusion of many populations, but we start with a specific one. It's a population with disabilities, starting but not limiting. We believe that in future we can also use sports as a tool for many other social inclusion aspects. And this is just an example to be more specific about what I'm talking about when I'm saying inclusive sports. Non-adaptive sports is just like regular sports you probably used to think about when you hear sports. Adaptive sports is sports for people with disabilities specifically. For example, you can see sledge hockey, and I love sledge hockey. This is how my love to adaptive sports started. It can be blind soccer. It can be, but basically any of them can be also inclusive sports, which means people with and without disabilities can do them together. There are some non-Paralympic sports, which I know not recognized by Paralympic Games, but still are amazing activities. For example, in Moscow, we have this go-kart racing for blind people. And you can imagine how you probably cannot imagine, but this is an amazing activity when people participate together, because one person in a cart can see and another person listen to the other cart and follow. It's a lot about trust, a lot about several examples of how powerful sports are actually. So why we're working specifically with a population with disabilities, we want to be very clear, like what are we doing and why we're doing. So here is the problem. The problem is adults and general people with disabilities are twice less active than population without disabilities. And this is nationally in the US, it is in Arkansas specifically, it is in Russia, it is in Moscow, it is in at least all the parts I've been working with. So the problem is like, okay, what is the problem? Why people are not engaging in sports and activities? There are a lot of research about that. This is why I'm studying health promotion and doing research on that, not trying to figure out by myself, everything is done. So there are several main problems to that, main barriers, and one of them is lack of awareness. So this specific problem, lack of awareness, that brings us to the bigger problem of the fact that people with disabilities are less engaged in activities. This is what we're tackling with SameSport. And this is our theory of change. So we're saying, okay, one of the main problem is less of awareness. So we believe that if people with disabilities learn about available opportunities through the SameSport, our platform that I will show later, they will join sport clubs. And thus, and this is what research shows, this will, of course, influence the quality of life and health, mental and physical. But what is the most important, and that is why it's emphasized here, is a reduction of stigma. So as we mentioned before, sports is a very powerful tool. It's not about only physical health or mental health. So our main goal is a reduction of stigma towards disabilities using the tool of sports. So how it works. This is the website, SameSport.org, SameSport.Arkansas. This is the website that has been just launched and that we celebrate today together. This is the database of sports activities for people with and without disabilities. So everyone who wants to find an activity can go to the website, go to the search projects page. And here we just have 4 locations now. And I'm so happy that 3 from 4 locations representatives are here, so hello. We just started, so basically we collect information about available activities. We have special filters so that everyone can search what they do want. For example, here is the sport, type of sport, if you're looking for specific sport, type of activity. As I mentioned, we are including both adaptive, non-adaptive for people with disabilities, without or inclusive, because the main idea is that everyone can choose. And comparing to the website we had in Moscow, the difference is that here we're not making a website only for people with disabilities. So we don't want, solving one problem and hence another problem of exclusion. So this is a platform for everyone, and disabilities is just like one type of diversity that you can see here for types of diversity that are usually recognized in Paralympic sports as well. So there is a level of professional, recreational type of sport, age for children or adults or everyone, and also something that COVID makes us think about, is it available online or not? Then we can see how the project looks like. So here are the information about from those filters, description of the activity, prices, schedule, and contact details. So contact details have a special button because we want to, it's very hard to track the impact. So we are trying to at least track as much as we can, collect data. And so clicking this button helps us to understand how many people not just view the profile, but how many people wanted to see contact details, which probably more meaningful in terms of how many people really, were more interested in this specific activity. And also I say hi to Karap and Mediho on this photo, and Hillyer, I hope too. And also we have news and stories. And here I want to acknowledge 3 students from the University of Arkansas from social entrepreneurship class who just joined the project. You will meet one of them very soon. She will be moderating the panel. And also Mason and Delia, thank you so much for joining the project with your skills of writing and storytelling. So I have people now, amazing people who are willing to work with the promotion and write stories. So we are growing and our team is growing, and thank you a lot for that. And just to finish up, there is a small, in one slide, it's so interesting, just like 5 years in one slide of my life. So just to see where we are, what we've done, and where are we going. So everything started from my visit to Paralympic Games in Sochi when I just first time saw adaptive sports. And this is how it all started. Then 3 years later, I got to the specific idea what I want to do and how. This is how SameSport in Russia was launched in Moscow. I also got to participate as an exchange expert in 2017, the same year, to understand how sports in the US works. It was New York and Washington, DC organizations. Then there was a Fulbright scholarship, so thanks for that. I'm here now today, and I was able to learn how to do research in health and sports promotion. So this is a huge input in what we're doing with SameSport as well. And also, of course, with all entrepreneurial skills I got there participating in social innovation initiative programs. And last year, I also was super lucky to be accepted to Clinton Global Initiative University with a project of actually launching SameSport.Arkansas. So I'm so happy to, kind of have a result of that. And we've been participating in Impact Hub Moscow. It's a business accelerator for social entrepreneurial projects where we participated with Anastasia. And it was an amazing experience, not sleeping at 3 a.m. because it's in Moscow, and we were together in this. Thanks to her, I think I survived. And now we are launching SameSport.Arkansas. So this is 2021. I'm super happy. I think this is the most important hour in my 2 years here. The main part is that we are just starting, and we need your help, your comments, your input, your experience to make it better. So we invite everyone who wants to participate, either organizations, of course, please. I will send in the chat the link where you can fill the form to get into the database. Also, you can just email me and we will get in touch. And also, even if you're not an organization, but just someone interested in sports, in inclusions with sports, in social impact of sports, you can contact me, and I will be super happy to listen to opinions and, develop it together and really make it better. So I invite everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. This was my short presentation, the most nervous 15 minutes in my life, I think. But I'm super happy to, again, thank University of Arkansas and get closer to our panel discussion with amazing experts, and to invite our Senior Associate Athletics Director at the University of Arkansas, who oversees diversity and inclusion initiatives here, Terry Prentice.
Thank you, Olga.
Hello.
Hello. Congratulations on getting this off the ground, number one. And then number two, 10 minutes well spent. So I know you might have been pretty nervous about the opportunity and putting this all together, but I think it was very well done and comprehensive, and congratulations on getting this off the ground, but 10 minutes well spent. So thank you for having me today. I'm really just here to share a few words, certainly not the highlight, and want that to be on the panelists, but appreciate the warm welcome, and looking forward to listening, learning, and then doing my best for my position here at the University of Arkansas to engage in all kinds of diverse communities. I want to take a few minutes to just touch on the power of intercollegiate athletics and what we actually are able to accomplish in our industry. I was a track and field student athlete here at the University of Arkansas, had an opportunity to be surrounded by a talented but also very diverse cast of people, not just from the United States, but from all around the world. I had teammates who went on to represent their countries in the Olympics and the World Championships from Estonia, from Jamaica, from the Bahamas, from South Africa, from France, really, you name it. We had a student athlete here from all around the world. And it was that experience that really showed me we were doing more than just impacting, Black, white, brown student athletes from just here in the United States. During my time as a staff member, was able to watch us recruit a young man from Utah who had the privilege and the honor to represent the United States in the Paralympics, in Hunter Woodall, which is groundbreaking and a first at the NCAA Division I level. He went on to move to Arkansas's all-time top 10 list in the 400-meter dash. And it just recently announced he was turning professional in February, and is able to take advantage of that, and is a great representative of the University of Arkansas. And so we're proud to have had Hunter come through our doors and represent the University of Arkansas and become an All-American for us, and hopefully inspire another generation of Paralympians to be able to take their talents to a Division I institution and run at the highest level, compete at the highest level, regardless of their sport. So looking along those lines, and then the power of inclusion in seeing the outpouring from our industry peers and other student athletes from this last summer, which all began with George Floyd, but then, trickled to Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and several others. I think we've just seen the power of sports and how it could be a great unifier and allow us to help be pillars in our community and help rally for change. So I'm excited. I love the role that I'm in. The new piece of legislation around name, image, and likeness was signed by our governor yesterday. And so that's another part that I'm excited about, another part of my job I'm excited about that also factors into diversity and inclusion, in that student athletes from all kinds of backgrounds finally have the opportunity to commercially use their name, image, and likeness. And I call that generational impact, because you really don't know what a student athlete might be able to learn and do if a sponsor might come towards them and them not be able to go to the professional ranks. And we can now be able to share that with our national, international student athletes, but then our student athletes who might be from underprivileged backgrounds and might not have ever had an opportunity, if not for sport, to even think about becoming their own business person or entrepreneur. So don't want to be long-winded. Again, I think the highlight of today is on the panelists and on this launch of SameSport, but I'm happy to be here and wanting to do my part and giving back to the state of Arkansas that's poured so much into me. And again, I think athletics is such a great melting pot of diversity and inclusion that we should be celebrating that. So Olga, congratulations again, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm super grateful to be a part of this community. Okay, so let's get to our panel. Sunny, this is my co-moderator and my amazing new team member. They are SameSport.Arkansas, so she will be moderating with me. And we have our wonderful panelists, Dr. Sarah Hillyer, Director of Center for Sport, Peace, and Society at the University of Tennessee. I was super lucky to have internship last year there as a research intern. Abby Smith, Community Manager of Sports Hub, and Camie Powell, Director of Marketing and Partnerships of Special Olympics Arkansas, I think the main player of adaptive and inclusive sports in the state. Thank you for being here. It's amazing that you all could come. So we'll start. Yeah, thank you so much. We'll start then with the first question about more general and at the same time more specific about your organizations and work you are doing. So how do you utilize sports as a tool for social change, and with what audiences you are working, what communities, how do you work, and what social impact of sports do you see in your work?
Hey, Olga, who are you starting with?
Oh, you can start. No order. Yeah. I think you just made it. Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to be respectful. My name is Sarah. I'm at the University of Tennessee Center for Sport, Peace, and Society. My colleague, Dr. Carolyn Spellings, is here too. And at the center, we are using the intersection of sport, education, and social innovation. So Olga was a great fit for us this summer to promote more equitable, peaceful, and inclusive societies around the world. So we have we're so grateful for a partnership with the U.S. Department of State Sports Diplomacy Division, where we run a mentoring program really focused on two areas. One is gender equality, and the other is promoting the rights of people with disabilities. So collectively, we've trained 209 women and men that are using sport as a tool for social impact in 86 countries. And so that's just a brief introduction, if that's helpful, Olga, and congratulations. We are so crazy proud of you.
Thank you.
I can take it next. I'm Abby. I'm the community manager at Sports Hub. If you're not familiar with Sports Hub, we work under Nobel Peace Prize laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus, and we implement his work in the world of sport. So we are the global social business network, creating local solutions in and through sport. So kind of what that means and what we do in the world of sport is we really combine this power of sport and social business to solve problems. So if you're not familiar with the social business, what it is it's a business 100% dedicated to solving a social or environmental problem. Professor Yunus is known as the father of social business. He invented microcredit, which is what led him to the development of this concept of social business. And he's been recognized like by Forbes as one of the greatest entrepreneurs of our time, the father of social business and microcredit, like I mentioned. So now kind of looking at this is part of sport and how do we solve problems through sport and social business at Unus Sports Hub. What we do is we create programs to solve these problems. So for example, we solve problems in sport and through sport. So an example of a problem you might often see in sport is maybe athletes living in poverty, and something that you can see that we do to solve that problem would be athlete entrepreneurship programs and giving athletes an opportunity to create a social business or a business as a way to financially sustain their sports career or their career transition. And then an example of how we could solve problems through sport is you could see, for example, our sport and social business centers are a way to tackle this problem of youth unemployment and giving financial inclusion to young people by giving them a place to set up a business and opportunities to access to opportunities outside of just sport. And then in terms of what audiences we serve, what's really special is that social business is very sector agnostic. So it can be seen in any area. So often what we say is we can serve any population, whether it's a sports federation, an organization, the government, a sports team, an athlete, or even an individual through our community. Sport and social business can be used by everyone to solve problems and create businesses in their communities.
So Camie Powell, Director of Marketing and Partnerships for Special Olympics Arkansas. Really honored to be here and was really thrilled to work with Olga on all of this. Just to explain, most people know that Special Olympics works with sports for people with intellectual disabilities, but more importantly, we really focus on the importance of health and how our athletes are athletes as well. And we use health, inclusive health, and health equity a lot for our social change. And that comes in through some of the inclusive health trainings that we do. Most importantly, when our volunteers come out in any capacity, for example, university students, when they work with our athletes in a volunteer capacity, they come away with a different perception and understanding, and that in itself creates social change. People have more of an understanding about what people with intellectual disabilities can and can't do. Most times they're blown away, and that's our job, right? To watch the athletes just shock them completely, and then they're never the same again. That's really how we use social change. It's kind of magic at our events, but then we aggressively attack health equality and inclusive health by training healthcare professionals, fitness professionals, anybody in the community health realm, to making sure that they understand that people with intellectual disabilities, the different health disparities they have and how we can overcome them, and that most of them are not anything that was handed down with the diagnosis. It comes from lack of health education or lack of access to care, things like that. And then as far as the communities we serve and the people we serve, come one, come all, any community. We serve ages 2 until any athlete would like to retire. We also have traditional sports. So that's sports with, in our world, we call it traditional sports. That's going to be a sport where everyone competing has an intellectual disability. And then we have unified sports, which is with people with and without intellectual disabilities playing on the same team. And wow, the perceptions that change there, the social climate that changes within a school system is really phenomenal.
Yeah, that's amazing work you're doing, and how amazing to hear so different approaches and all them around sports and inclusion, and that's so inspiring. So yeah, thank you again for being here and for talking to us today.
And over this past year, we've been going through this pandemic together, but we still see all these innovations that we are continuing to push through. But in what ways does COVID present obstacles for using sport as social change, both in the short term and in the long term, and how can we confront them?
Abby, you want to go first?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something I can speak on because Professor Eunice, as you may have seen, is a very strong advocate for, this is a little farther outside of sport, but in terms of advocating for the need to make the vaccine a global common good. And making, this is, if you follow Professor Eunice, you'll see that this is a very large campaign that we're supporting in the Eunice ecosystem. But I actually had the privilege of hearing Professor Eunice speak on this exact topic and the impact of COVID, and of course it does cause, it's caused crises, and it's also challenged innovation. So I had the privilege of hearing him speak on this a little bit. We just launched our sport and social business community the other day, and his words were very prolific. He taught me, he pointed out, wow, like look at this group that we have, and look at this event right now. Like I would never be able to just speak on an event with you, Olga, but now that Zoom has become so normalized, we've actually challenged innovation. So the question is, like, how do we make sure that there's no going back? How do we move forward and make sure that like we don't go back towards poverty? Because we've seen that this pandemic has put people back into poverty. It's obvious poverty is not poor people's fault. It's a problem of the systems. So how do we continue moving forward and take this innovation that we've seen here globally and also in the sport world, and not go back to where we were before? I can give another more little practical example of how we use sport. We did we led a COVID sports response in our community. So what it was a bunch of young people like our age came together and just developed very implementable solutions to COVID in their communities. So what it looked like was a weekly meeting by region, and the regions would collaborate and we'd point out like, oh, I'm really recognizing this in my community or recognizing that. And in the different communities across the globe, you saw like it coming together as like a large regional group, but then implementing local solutions. So one example was athletes recognizing that people didn't have access to coaching. So a lot of the athletes in our community stepped up and started doing Instagram live sessions. Another area saw that like the homeless community was not having access to hygiene products. So the athletes and our community members in that region stepped up, and each of them went out into their community and gave out hygiene kits, but also a little bit of sports equipment for them as well.
That's awesome, Abby. I was going to say, I think for us, it's the realization that sport is going to change, right? Like, I think all of our worlds are going to change in the future in a variety of ways. And the beautiful thing about that is that as federations and leagues and, you know, the governing bodies are thinking about how to do sport moving forward, is now we have the opportunity to reset the strategies and reset the vision and what's possible. So to what Abby said, let's make sure we go forward differently. And I think we have a moment in history to be so intentional about the way we're using sport. You know, sport just kept getting more and more and more and more commercial, and then it stopped. And we realized that actually what sport did for all of us is it wasn't about the championship banners or rings or medals anymore. What we missed most about sport was the things that tie us together as humans, those rituals, those moments of sharing, the power of just the touch of a high five, you know? And so I think it helped remind us that the relationships and the possibilities of sport, if we use it more intentionally, we really could, to Olga's point regarding the Sustainable Development Goals, really make some great progress, just because we have to hit the reset button. And if we have the privilege of hitting the reset button, we may as well do it better in the future with more intentionality for social good.
I'm not sure there's much more to add. Those were pretty dead on, and I completely agree. But I will also just bring a couple of things that we had an opportunity during the pandemic to really stress to the rest of our communities, which is so often our athletes get left behind or assumed that they're on social media or assuming that they can jump onto a Zoom call. And so I was able to really show them that in an impact of 19,500 athletes across the state, when you have one Zoom with 50 athletes, that's not making a dent, and that we really needed to brainstorm other outreaches in health access, sport access. And so we were able to go back a little bit and talk about printed materials and what those types of things look like and what they need to have for health education. So it was a little bit more eye-opening. We had some people saying, well, that's fine, I'll have a Zoom. And I would say, that's fine, but you're not going to reach a large amount of our adult population. And if our students aren't in school, some of them are not getting active, some of them are not participating. So we were really able to drive some of those social factors home and show how important getting together with sport is. And hopefully that will help everybody be more intentional going forward and realizing that we really can't take those 30-minute practices for granted.
Yes, I loved it. While I was listening, I remembered a World Cup that was in Russia several years ago. And even me, a person who never was interested in soccer, to be honest, soccer may be the only sport I never liked, but that was the atmosphere we had in the city, in the country, like so many people coming from all over the world. Some people came without even tickets to the game. They was just wanted also to be here. And this just, it's impossible to describe. This is a power of community, I think, when you're all around the same interest. And also as an international student here, I feel it very well that most, like I don't want to say best, like most main connections I made with locals were people from my sport club, because we're here with the same interests and we are doing, we are talking the same language again. We are talking the language of the sports, and this is a so powerful thing. So yeah, thank you for that. Examples. So one of the questions I had, it's a personal pain point as a social entrepreneur working with sports, and I think pain point for many other social entrepreneurs. So how do we measure social impact in those difficult things? It's not like count in terms of dollars, return on investment. So how do we measure the social impact we deliver? How can we measure it to demonstrate in research for grant applications or just exchanging experience? So what are the tips, maybe examples, how we can do that? I know it's not an easy question. I'm sorry.
Well, I can tell you how we measure our social impact in a couple of the different programs that we do. For Unified Champion Schools, it's a program for preschool all the way through college. And we measure that through multiple different surveys, essentially when a student first starts getting involved in their perceptions and understandings. And then we follow that student past graduation and see if what they're doing in life now was impacted by what they learned through the social climate events that we were doing through their school. I'm a product of that myself. I came to work for Special Olympics because I was a volunteer in the 5th grade. I was a member of a unified sports club, and it changed the way that I viewed the entire world. So we measure it in impacts of that. In the university setting, we do reflections at the beginning of a semester when we start to work with our service learning project. And then at the end of the semester, that same student writes a reflection. And those are truly measuring moment by moment what that student went through that semester to come to the realizations of the different diversity, acceptance, inclusion aspects that we covered and how they're going to use that as they go forward. And then when we move into our health programming, our policies and procedures for our social change, we often have them list what components within their organization, their business, their club, they're going to change and how. And then we follow up and measure that a few years later, 6 months later. It depends on the different group, because we want to know, did you change a policy within your human resources? Did you change a method? Did you open up to a different line of, okay, I didn't think about recruiting from this group? I mean, there's so many different pieces, but those are the way we're just trying to kind of grasp how much change and how much impact we're making here in Arkansas.
I can answer next. That's a really interesting question for us because we're a social business, not a charity. So grant application is not necessarily something that we need to do, which means that we're never really forced to do impact measurement on one side at least. So this is because instead of asking for money from people, we build self-sustainable business models to solve the problems. So it's interesting when you ask this question in the UNIS ecosystem, especially under Professor Eunice, which is about, there's like over 500 businesses across the world in this UNIS ecosystem. But it's interesting to bring up impact measurement for us, because we really focus at the beginning on looking at what exactly is this problem that we're trying to solve. So instead of measuring and tackling this large problem like so many incredible organizations are doing, we really try to hone in on what exactly is the one problem that we're trying to solve. And then instead of looking at going from like black to gray, we go black to white, like, yes, we've solved the problem. So an example more realistic in this type of thinking is, if you take the Grameen Bank, for example, the problem here is very clear. It's access to credit for people living in poverty, meaning that every client in the Grameen Bank is our impact measurement. So if there's 10 clients, then 10 people now have access to credit. Or if there's 1,000 clients, then 1,000 people have now had access to credit, and the problem has been solved times 1,000 versus 2,000 if you have 2,000 clients.
Abby, I like it. I like that you get to measure outputs and
It's
that
lucky.
outcomes, which is amazing.
Yeah, it makes it. I also always constantly get the question of, especially here in the US, of like, okay, that's easy to say, but like in the US, like we're very strict on impact measurement and 501c3. So how does it work? So, and then you have to go into a lot bigger details, but mostly what it comes down to is that we're businesses, we're not charities. So businesses have a little bit more flexibility because they're not using other people's money.
That's the truth. That is the truth. So ours is probably a hybrid between your all's. So we measure during our programs. We do a pre-test, post-test, just to measure the changes in knowledge during the program. We do daily surveys where we're getting daily feedback on the programming that we're delivering, so that we can make real-time adjustments during a 5-week mentorship program. And then we've made a big commitment to longitudinal tracking. And so we measure outputs when they return home, progress towards their action plans, which are very similar to a social business plan that they're doing, as well as to what Camie said, looking at individual transformation. So whether that's increased levels of efficacy or confidence or knowledge and attitudes, and then eventually behaviors. So the personal transformation, but then what's the ripple effect on the community? So community transformation, and that's a little harder once they go home to measure that. Obviously there's some real challenges there. And then policy changes. So individual, community, policy, are they moving the needle on policies that are protecting and promoting the rights of persons with disabilities, or women and girls, or other marginalized communities? And this is an amazing project that Olga helped us with this summer. We did a global mapping project where we looked at disability rights, laws, and policies globally, and put them all on one interactive map, because there wasn't a one-stop shop where you could get all of that. There's lots of different websites. So we collected it all in many of the countries that we're working in. Dr. C, how many countries did we map? 60 or so countries. Mm-hmm. But then what we did is we brought the sports world together with that. So there's the policy and the laws which affect people with disabilities. But then we added that to information about the Paralympics in that particular country, the Deaf Olympics, and the Special Olympics. So the sport information and the policies and laws that affect those sports live on one interactive website. And then we humanized it by featuring one of our alumni that are working and using sport for social impact in those communities. And we tell a little bit about their story. So we're trying to humanize the policy, and then make connections between the large sporting bodies around that. And I'll drop Dr. C, maybe we can drop the website. So it's an interactive global map, which Olga did a great job. There's a toolkit. So at the University of Tennessee, I don't know how you guys are at Arkansas, but we are crazy about copywriting our materials. And I'm only kidding. what we mean by copywriting at the center is everyone has the right to copy anything we produce if you promise to use it to advance good in this world. So a toolkit for anybody that wants to advocate for more inclusive sports opportunities, please feel free to put that to use. There's an FAQ. There's lots of resources on this website that we've dropped in the chat. So Olga, I hope that helped answer your question.
Yes, thank you so much. It was such an amazing experience to work with you on that. And how do you tackle different levels in terms of individual, community, and in the world and policy levels, as well as personal story, their community, you know, the policies and projects of individuals. So it's amazing how it can be all actually, how we can all build one picture, comprehensive picture. So this is great. Yeah, and the link is in the chat, so everyone can see it.
Yes, thank you. And then going a bit broader from how we track them, what are the overall challenges that in working in the field of delivering social impact through sports, and how do we overcome these challenges that we face?
Go first. I feel like mine's going to be the simplest. So some of our biggest fear that we approach on a day-to-day basis is that what we're doing for our athletes is something nice. Oh, thank you. That's so nice of you to do this for these kids. Or, well, our kids may be 75. They're athletes, they're children and adults, and just getting, you know, everybody to understand who we're working with. And then when it comes to the challenge, understanding that we're offering a pure sport opportunity for people with intellectual disabilities. They train, they compete. This isn't something where everybody shows up and gets a gold medal. This is not a recreational fun day, and that our athletes come to compete, and they are real competitors, and they deserve that respect as a real competitor. And we do our work on our end too, to communicate to our athletes what a real athlete should act like, you know, walk like an athlete, talk like an athlete, those types of things, making sure that they're advocating for their own health, but really taking our athletes seriously, and less of a community help day is something that we're up against, and we fight daily to make sure that people respect our athletes and who they are and what they're trying to accomplish.
I go next. So I think this is an interesting question that we actually speak on a lot here at Unisports on the challenges that we see the sport for development sector faces as a whole, because this sector of sport for development is they're incredible superheroes. The way that they work in such a grassroots way, and they understand the organizations that they're working with and the people that they're serving. They're really incredible at the work that they do. And the challenges that we see are not exactly in these organizations, but in the system by which it's financed. So what I mean by this here is that while these organizations do such an incredible job, they're now financed by grants. So then, like we just mentioned before, in terms of the impact measurement, when you're using someone else's money or you're financed by grants, then it shows dependency on program continuity in order to keep getting those grants, or time and resource allocation, because then you need to pay someone to do impact reporting and fundraising and grant writing. And you also see that risk of mission drift, because if you're using somebody else's money, then they kind of have a say on how it's used, when realistically, you're the person, these organizations are the people on the ground who know the problem and they know how to solve the problem, but they might not be able to do that because they need to do it in a way that they get approval to use the money in a certain way. So the way that we see this challenge to be overcome, again, can be sometimes through social business. So obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say the entire sport for development sector needs to turn around and become a business. Like, that's not going to happen overnight. It's something that takes time. But what you can see is these organizations like building upon their core competencies and establishing a sustainable business model within what they do. So a great example that we like to highlight often is an organization called Amigos Del Mar. They give education opportunities to, and it's a surf program in Central South America, where they give, they make surf fins out of recycled materials. So basically these kids go out and they give a basic education program, and the kids collect all the trash as well. And then they recycle the trash into these recycled surf bins that are so cool. And then what they do is they sell them, but then they sell them to the National Federation. So then there's establishing sustainable revenue that's then able to support that same education program.
I love it. Abby, how have we never met before?
I know.
You're speaking our language. It's so true, because we are grant dependent, and we are so laser focused and committed to not drifting in our mission, but it is such a challenge. And the other challenge with being grant dependent is there's no space for innovation, right? Like you can't fail. You don't have the luxury of failing. So we completely understand and agree that. And then I got all lost in innovation. What's the question, Olga?
Sorry, I think I drifted away from I think that was me drifting away from the question a little bit. Sorry, Olga.
Yeah, no, this is amazing. It was Sunny's question, but it's about yeah, it's about challenges and how do we overcome.
Challenges. How can I forget challenges? Okay, so in some ways, I think one of the greatest challenges is, and Abby, you used the word superheroes, right? Those that are working in the sport for development and peace space. We couldn't agree more. They are such heroes amongst their communities because they don't have resources. All they have is just the sheer grit and determination and unwavering will to look at a problem and say, I don't know anything else to do, but I do know I love soccer or basketball or volleyball, and I'm just going to use it. I'm going to use it to make a difference. So it's innovation. It's just like, I got to get something done. So we love that. But regarding the challenges is there's this dichotomy of the way we see sport. And so if we look at people on the ground who want to develop solutions to pressing social challenges, we see them as the heroes. And we see sport as the superpower for each of us. So if you guys remember any action hero, superhero movie, a superpower can be used for good or for evil, right? It depends on whose hands it's in. If it's in the hands of a hero, then the superpower can be great. If it's in the hands of a villain, then we're in trouble. And so we believe that sport is our superpower. And in the hands of the right people, it can be used to solve so many challenges. But if sport is in the hands of the wrong people, meaning we're just using it for commercial gain, win at all cost, all of those things, then sport actually can be really detrimental to the individual and the community and up through policy level as well. So I would say one of the greatest challenges is, especially for Americans and maybe you're really a lot of us, is do we see sport and the potential that it has? And do we realize that in our hands, it is a superpower, but it is up to us as to how we use it. And are we dedicating to using that in an intentional way to advance humanity, or are we using it in ways that are fleeting and useless in the end?
These are so powerful words, and it's like a topic for a new session, I feel. So this amazing conversation. Thank you so much. We have one last minute that we'll use to thank you for coming. You cannot imagine how I'm personally, I cannot hide it. It's my personal project. So I personally thank you for coming, and also as a professionally as well, because it's so amazing to see your examples, and I'm looking forward to collaborate with you in all the possible ways. And thank you for your thoughts and for your new ideas that I have noted many things here today. Just want to thank again our speakers and also the Social Innovation Initiative at the University of Arkansas. I wanted to thank Office of Entrepreneurship that also helped me a lot. And my advisor, Dr. Henry, I know she's here, who had to during these 2 years, listen to my ideas and say, okay, I'll do it. Okay, so thank you all so much. And Dr. Rogelio, please, I wanted to invite you for final remarks.
Thank you, Olga. Well, you said it all. I think I just want to take a moment to thank our panelists, Ms. Smith, Ms. Powell, Professor Hillyer, thank you for being part of this event and for enriching the conversation in very meaningful ways. Mr. Prentice, thank you as well for joining us and reminding us to celebrate the diversity and inclusion that exists in sports. And to our audience, I guess just our gratitude for being here as well. Dr. Herr mentioned at the beginning of the session that SameSport is a great example of the kind of work we do at Arkansas Global Changemakers. And these events and the network and connections they foster, like the UNOS Sport Hub meeting, the Center for Sports, Peace and Society, is part of what we do. But an essential component of our efforts is precisely the community of change makers that are represented here in all of you. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to everyone that supported the event, and best of luck to SameSports Arkansas. Thank you, Olga.